Hi, I'm Tracey, your leading health and nutrition coach and molecular biologist. I've consulted with hundreds of people around the world on their human journey. So if you're a seeker looking for answers, information and knowledge, you'll find it here. Come on a journey with me as I explore the science, the physical body, and the cognitive and energetic space of what it really means to be human. Welcome back, everybody, and today we're going to be talking about circadian rhythm. So perhaps that's something that you've heard of before, perhaps it's new to you, but basically we're going to be talking about what it is, why it's important, how you can optimize and work with your circadian rhythm, some of the things that get in the way, so our modern lifestyle choices and how that affects our circadian rhythm, and the best way that you can optimize it. So that I've actually got a breakdown of like the hour to hour like details of your circadian rhythm through the day. So we're going to go through that a little bit. So grab a pen and a piece of paper if you want to do that. Otherwise, I'll put all of the notes in the description in the show notes, and you can grab it out from there. But let's get into it. So circadian rhythm is so crucial to our health, right? It's running the physical body. It's important for excellent mental clarity, and it's about recalibrating our energetic self as well. So the majority of people have heard of the circadian rhythm, but very few actually understand what it is and why it's important. So the very first thing that I just want to highlight to you, perhaps you're familiar with this and perhaps you're not, is that humans are part of nature. Yeah, we really are. We're animals, right? We're part of the natural world, but we live in concrete boxes and in a very, very unnatural way most of the time. And so it is difficult at times for us to actually tap into what is natural for us and work with our biology rather than trying to fight against it. You know, as much as we would love to operate consistently as well each and every day as well operating and functional beings, this simply isn't a part of our chemistry and our biological makeup. You know, so men and women are different. We are very, very different, and women have other cycles at play as well that men do not, and men have cycles that women do not. And for us to put the pressure on ourselves to be running at optimal capacity all of the time is really, really such a high expectation, because it just doesn't work that way. And circadian rhythms can become unbalanced when we are simply, not going to dig in there and listen to what our body's needs are. We're going through the motions all of the time and not actually tapping in. And so there comes a time when a person needs to kind of recalibrate this unbalancing and make sure that we are living lifestyles that are specifically tailored and unique to us, because we are all unique and different human beings. We are not the same as the person next to us. So you might feel a slip in your circadian rhythm, and you might feel this in a few different ways. So perhaps you wake up feeling tired every day. Perhaps your body is feeling sluggish, or you're feeling unmotivated. Maybe your mind is sinking into negative thought and limiting belief patterns. And, unless you're aware of these things and you're actually in tune with your body, sometimes these go unnoticed. But once you start understanding how your body works and your mental health and your energetic health and how that is all working together with your physical body, you start picking up on these cues when things start to go off and slip up. And so let's talk about what your circadian rhythm is. So your circadian rhythm is your body's internal clock. It controls your sleep and wake patterns. It controls your brainwave activity, your hormone production, your cellular reproduction. Okay, it is your true built-in daily cycle. Okay, it's unavoidable. You cannot avoid this daily cycle. It is part of who you are. It makes up your makeup, your biological processes, right? Especially when it comes to cell reproduction and repair and hormone production and things like that. And it's unavoidable. So you might have felt this if you've ever traveled overseas, and now I have a lot of American listeners. So if you've come down here to the Southern Hemisphere, or people in Australia, if you've gone up to the Northern Hemisphere, you're going to feel a slight change in how your body functions. Sometimes it's actually much more major than slight. It's actually called jet lag. And who has suffered jet lag? I have. Oh my gosh. It can be really quite easy as you're shifting between the hemispheres. But if you're actually moving around to the other side of the globe, you can really feel the jet lag, and it can be quite nasty, but it's very different for every single person. So the symptoms aren't necessarily the same. I know from when I've been in Europe and I've come back to Australia, I get inner ear problems. So my body just can't seem to get the equilibrium right within my ears. And so I tend to have to kind of work out this balance between when I want to be up and when I want to be down. I can get quite nauseous. I get tired. And it's actually particularly worse coming from Europe to Australia than it is going from Australia over to Europe, which is very interesting as well. And perhaps you'd like to look a little bit more into that if you're interested in that and why that is and why changing directions makes a difference. But it does make a difference. And so I always find that coming back to Australia, I'm always struggling so much more, which is not ideal, right? When you come back from a holiday and you actually have to struggle through a week of jet lag, it's not fun. But that's your circadian rhythm. Okay, and that's why it's so important. Now, there are optimal ways to use your circadian rhythm so that you can perform at your highest and use your body's systems to be more productive and more relaxed. If you work with your body in a way that it's meant to actually operate, you can achieve such amazing results. Yeah, and the small fact is that your circadian rhythm is actually naturally linked to your digestive system as well. So at night time, the gut microbiome in the digestive tract, it should slow down. Digestion itself is actually limited. It's placing very restricted amounts of energy in that area because the body is actually trying to rest. It's trying to rebuild and recover. And so it needs to have you running really well for the next day. So the digestive system should be overnight shutting down. You might notice this if you go out for dinner. Let's just say hypothetical because it's been summer here and like we're all out having dinners with friends and things at the moment. And so you go out at night and you have a really big meal, late, or I won't say European late because in Australia we don't typically eat at midnight. But if you're eating at say 8:30, 9 o'clock, it does take, and you're having a big meal, right? Because we're all kind of overindulging at the moment, which is awesome. You've got to enjoy these experiences. But you'll find that if you get home, sometimes it's very difficult for you to actually get to sleep. And that's because you've switched on your digestive system and your body's actually having to go against what it naturally wants to do. And that's shut down overnight and go to sleep so that you can be doing all of the other processes as well. So if you're sleeping poorly or if you're sleeping at odd times of the day for long periods of time, then the other systems in your body can become confused. Yeah, so overnight the body might not experience deep sleep. So between the hours of 2 and 4 a.m., that's when you should be at your optimal deep sleep space. So you're storing memories, you're rebuilding tissues, you're storing all of the things that you learnt the previous day. So if you're waking up between those times, there's something going on in your liver that you might need to look at. Yeah. And so overnight, the body might experience no deep sleep. And this is really important because when we feel like our memory is failing us, okay, now as we get older, we tend to kind of ignore the fact that we become quite forgetful for things. We walk into a room and we forget why we're there, or we go do something and we're like, what was it that I was supposed to write on the shopping list? I don't really remember. But, I know that a lot of you have this problem, okay? And this is not something that we should be happening to us at all. We should actually have pretty clear memories still at our age. And so it's really important for you to be aware of the times where you're waking up between 2 and 4 a.m. And that's because you simply aren't storing memories. You're not storing the learnings that you actually took in on the previous day. And that is definitely an issue. So if you're waking up during those times, I want you to be mindful of that and tap back into some of these tips and tools to get your circadian rhythm where it needs to be. All right, I'm going to flick that page to the side. Great. Next one. All right, so what happens when we have a poor circadian rhythm? Okay, so we have poor sleep quality. Okay, we have trouble sleeping and we have trouble staying asleep. Okay, we have irregular hormone productions in both men and women. Estrogen, progesterone, testosterone, all of those things actually go out of whack as well. We can have some serious metabolic irregularities as well, in issues in the digestive system, like I mentioned before. If we're not giving the gut a chance to have a break, we can end up with some irritability and things like that. We can have weight gain. We can have slower thinking and cognitive challenges, right? We can have moodiness and depression and fatigue. Now, it is summer here and we are overindulging and we're going out and we're drinking and we're having a great old time. I'm doing it. I'm having a great old time. It's been fun. I'm having a great summer. But when we don't get enough sleep, we're leading ourselves into some moodiness and some depression because the body needs to shut down. It needs to have 7 to 9 hours sleep. Now, unless you're in a ketosis type space and you've been running in that space for a really long period of time and you only need maybe 5 or 6 hours, the typical person needs 7 to 9 hours every night. And so if you're not getting that, you're going to feel it when you get up the next day. Yeah. So hopefully you're starting to build a bit of a picture of the knock-on effect that happens when we move away from the natural rhythm of our body and what can happen to our overall health. So if there's a disturbance, like there usually is over these summer periods when we're out more and we're socializing and we're not sleeping, then you can see how your body can go into burnout and why it feels like you need a holiday after your holiday. This is why. This is exactly why. I've said this so many times myself. Oh my gosh, I just had the best holiday. It was so good. I did all of these things and I overindulged, but now I need a holiday from my holiday because my body's so tired because I've been exerting myself in ways that I shouldn't be exerting myself. But it's all part of the human experience, right? We've got to have these times with our family and friends, and those are really important as well, as long as we're coming back and we're actually realigning and recalibrating our system and we're getting everything back on track. So what are some of the typical issues with modern lifestyles? So when it comes to a regular life and coming back into a social setting, right? So we've been on holidays, we come back. What are some of the main issues that we have? Well, majority of them go against the circadian rhythm, okay? Majority of people are working 9 to 5 hour shifts. Okay, we're sleeping in too late. We're missing the sunrise. We're staying up too late past 10:30. Okay, we're not scheduling in daily routines. We're not exercising. We're not exposing our body to sunlight. Okay, we're using devices. We're using devices at nighttime and, disturbing the pineal gland and the release of melatonin at nighttime. I mean, I talk about this so much, people. You guys know this already, right? So devices at nighttime. If you haven't listened to those episodes before, oh my gosh, it's so bad to have all that blue light hitting your eyeball and going through to your pineal gland because your pineal gland is never going to release the melatonin and your brain is never going to switch off. And this is why we have trouble sleeping. So if you haven't heard of that before, I really encourage you to this is like the number one thing, is controlling device use and getting that on track and switching things off, having a time limit on your phone and making sure you put it away where you can't touch it at around 7:30 at night, 8 o'clock maximum. Do that because it actually takes an hour to an hour and a half for the body to actually recalibrate and then start producing melatonin after it's been exposed to phone lighting, okay? So living in highly stimulated lives in front of screens, but it's this constant gratification, right? And our stimulus within our environments as well. So it does make it difficult for our brain to shut down because we do the phone scrolling, we binge watch on TV. We're doing all of these things that are taking us away from the way that we evolved in nature, right? Normally it wasn't that long ago, right? When we were actually out and looking at fires. I mean, how relaxing is a fire? How relaxing is it? It's so lovely. I mean, but when you've got 40-degree days here in Perth, that's the last thing you want is to actually sit around a fire because it's just way too hot. But in saying that, these are the types of things that we would be doing during the summer months. We would have migrated south towards the cooler regions, right? So where it was more temperate, so we could enjoy ourselves and we would still have all of these fires and cold plunges and things, but we don't do that anymore. We lock ourselves into a box with Wi-Fi's and stimulus and noise and chatter, and not only that, like we read stuff that, sends off our fight or flight centers as well. We're reading things that are toxic, or being around things that are toxic, or in relationships that are toxic. So all of these things are going to have an impact on our circadian rhythm. So when it comes to optimizing your circadian rhythm, I feel like it takes some motivation. Yeah. It takes dedication to make a habitual change, because this is the point where most people fall down, because they don't want to repeat the key things that need to happen. And if you do want to optimize yourself and you do want to bounce out of bed every day, there comes a point where you have to prioritize certain things in your life and get rid of some of the things that are causing you distress. And so if repetition for you isn't achievable right now, then that's okay. Come back to it later when it is. But if you're ready to make a change and you want to be bouncing out of bed in the mornings, then you need to get into a rhythm of consistency. All right, you might like to consider ways where you can tweak your daily routine to fit around the clock so that you can operate, and work in a more advantageous position. Okay. The internal system is, at its basis of many issues today, because what happens is people go against the built-in systems and they try to change it to adapt them in their particular lifestyle, which is completely impossible and always leads to disease. Yeah. So this is the unfortunate thing. There comes a time where we have to accept that we are human and we are limited in our biology, whilst we can do such extremely amazing things. Yeah. People can climb huge mountains. They can take on challenges. They can do things without limbs. They can do amazing things. But at the end of the day, there is an underlying system that comes to play that's part of our genetics, part of our DNA, part of our biology. And when we try to adapt our biology to our lifestyle, it doesn't work. And you might get some consistency in that for a small period of time, but long term it just doesn't work. And this is where we put the body into extreme situations and it goes into burnout, because it can only maintain a thing for a certain amount of time before it starts resisting. So, your body it's just so incredibly well designed and structured so that you can use your circadian rhythm to your advantage, but you have to adapt yourself and your mind and allow it to happen that way. So what are some of the steps that you can take to establish a healthy circadian rhythm? 1, rise with the sun. Sounds really simple, but there is a whole biological process that happens when we rise with the sun. Okay, we are so intrinsically linked with the sun and the sun setting, the sun rising, and the sun throughout the course of the day, and it is directly influential on our hormone production. Okay, so when you rise with the sun and you step outside and you expose yourself to the light first thing in the morning, this releases cortisol from the adrenal glands. Okay, and the cortisol is what gets you up and kickstarts your day. Yeah, it also allows the melatonin in the pineal gland to actually be switched off. Okay, so melatonin has a massive purpose. I mean, a lot of people don't understand what melatonin does, but it's not just about regulating sleep and wake patterns. It's also about going around and scavenging for cells that shouldn't be in the body and actually alerting the immune system that there's something wrong with a particular cell so it gets destroyed. So melatonin is actually very, very important. And if we don't have enough melatonin in our body, it's not performing those sort of important tasks at nighttime. So we want to have good melatonin production. We want to have good cortisol production in the morning. Okay, now this is another thing too. Too much cortisol production, if it's ongoing and we're putting our body into a stress response or a fight or flight response, the adrenal glands can go into adrenal fatigue. And I'm sure you've heard of that before. Maybe you haven't. I definitely want you to check that out and read up a little bit more about adrenal fatigue if you haven't heard about that before. But that's just because the body is actually pumping out so much cortisol. It's in a fight and flight. It's like pumping out adrenaline. It's go, 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 busy, 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 busy all of the time. And the body just can't maintain it. Yeah. So you need to see the light with the naked eye as well. Okay. So that means no glasses, no contacts. The light needs to penetrate the eyes, its cells, yeah? It needs to stimulate the nerves that run all the way up to the brain without a barrier. That's really important, okay? The light that comes through, the AVB, ABC light that actually comes through, the infrared light, the ultra infrared, all of those, near infrared light, all of those that come through the full light spectrum is so important for our eyes to actually release certain hormones and actually perform amazing tasks within the body. So if you can, in summer, go and see the sunrise, okay, even if it's just on weekends. And this is really good for your red light and pineal gland stimulation, as we just spoke about, both of which are, providing this kind of kickstart to your mitochondria as well. And I'm going to be talking about mitochondria health in a separate episode, but your mitochondria are those beautiful little organelles within each of the cells, and they are the energy powerhouses, okay? And they're so important because they produce our baseline energy, our chemical, our molecule called ATP, which is adenosine triphosphate. And so that's what we need in our body in really good doses so that we can actually get up and be functional for the day. If you don't have good ATP production, you're going to feel sluggish. You're not going to have healthy mitochondria at all, okay? So that's one of the first things that we want to look at is your mitochondrial health. And if you're home, step outside and take in the morning rays, all right? So now's a great time to meditate as well. So if you can meditate at any time of the day, that's great, but it is really amazing to do that first thing in the morning because it kickstarts your day in a really nice, calm and mindful way. So exercise as well in the morning is great to kickstart your metabolism because remember, less is more. You don't have to start big. Quality strength and cardio exercise is far more important than pushing yourself to do long periods of low quality activities, okay? I feel like that's one of the biggest things and challenges that we have is that we think that we have to over exercise. And I mentioned this actually in a previous chat with Edwina who came in and sat with me, and we talked about exercise. And the thing is that you can over exercise, you can overdo it. If you don't give your body a chance to repair and recover, we can get tears, we can get damage done to the ligaments and the muscle tissues and things like that. So over exercising is not always the answer. It's got to be well balanced, and it's got to be a good calorie intake and outtake as well to make sure that we're monitoring what's happening in the body as far as muscle production goes. So between 9 and 10, that is your highest energetic time of day. So you want to be scheduling your most important duties for the day here. Schedule your meetings, schedule your appointments, schedule anything that you need 100% focus on, okay? Take the hard stuff now, okay? Challenge yourself when you're on to meetings as well. Use the stairs and walk to places because you've got the energy to burn, okay? You've got this cortisol that's actually being pumped into your body, and so you've got the energy. You've woken up and you've got some energy there to burn. So make sure that you get out there and you do it. And it's about being accountable as well for your movement and making sure that you get into a routine with movement. So if you can, I like to exercise. This is my routine. This is what I do every day is I get up, I have a black coffee, and then I go out to my little gym space that I have, and that's when I exercise. I get it out of the way so that it's done and I don't have to think about it again, and it doesn't have to be anything major. You don't have to have the full gym equipment. You just have to have things that you're actually happy on and things that you're happy to do, because if we push and do exercises and things that we don't actually love, we're not passionate about, it becomes hard to actually be consistent with those things as well. All right, so lunch times. Yeah, let's not skip lunch, okay? We need to have the energy because we've been burning lots in the morning. Having a great breakfast obviously is a really great way to start. I didn't mention that, but you need to have breakfast, especially if you're exercising, yeah? So you need to replace all those calories so that your body can actually use the amino acids to build muscles, okay? So make sure you're having a good quality breakfast. Don't skip lunch, okay? Schedule in a time to eat. There doesn't need to be any excuses about avoiding food consumption, okay? So put it in your calendar and avoid, a meetings here, like putting meetings in your calendar so that you're actually making time to eat. Go for a walk, yeah? So take your food outside and enjoy some of the warmth and get into the sunlight. Yeah, just be careful if it's the summer in Perth and the UV is like ridiculous, the UV index is absolutely crazy. Well, we got to be sensible about when we're out in the sunlight, right? But we don't have to stress to the point of being fearful or scared of the sun. We need to have sunlight. So get to know how to use the sun. Download the DMinder app and use the app, okay? And learn how to work with your body and make sure that you're getting the correct amounts of light during the day. Now, 2:30 to 3:30. This again gives you another opportunity to exercise, okay? Because your coordination and reaction times are actually at the best time here. And I guess this goes back to evolution, right? When we're hunting and gathering, we're catching things for dinner. So of course our coordination and our reaction time is going to be, you know, appropriate for different times of the day where the sun is, because we want to be catching our meal. We don't have to catch meals anymore. We just go to Coles and Woolies and we buy meals, right? So we don't have to worry about that anymore. But this is a good opportunity for you to exercise. So if you're looking for another opportunity and you haven't had time to do it in the morning, then check it out then and start doing something there as well. If you've got running around duties to do, then do those then as well, yeah, while you're still switched on. And 3 o'clock, this is where everyone starts to get those mid-afternoon sugar cravings. Okay, this is a whole other episode and we're not going to talk about that right now, but make sure that you have some good quality protein or fat snacks on hand. And sugar is the obvious choice, right? Because we just want that quick fix and it goes straight to the brain and we feel amazing. But it is so short-lived and it doesn't give us the optimum nutrition that we need at all. So if you are actually finding that you're having sugar in the afternoons, we need to talk about that, yeah? And see what you can do before it gets to that stage as well. But at around 3 o'clock, if you're on a 9 to 5 sort of work schedule, this is the time where we want to start winding things down a little bit as well, yeah? We want to plan our schedule for the next day. We want to do jobs that require minimal attention. We don't want to start big new tasks or projects, yeah? Because we're just not going to be able to see that through especially by the time we get to say 4:30, it's just not going to happen. We want to stop drinking coffee now. So if you love to drink your coffee in the afternoon, we've got to think about sleep and how well you're going to get to sleep at night time. And we want to start preparing to get to home. Yeah. So making sure we're scheduled and organized for the next day at this point of the day is really important. So we come into the office, we don't feel rushed. We feel like we're organized. We feel like we have got everything under control, ready to start the day nice and fresh, because then that gives us a chance to exercise without feeling guilt or feeling rushed that we have to get to work straight away. And so by 4 o'clock, don't have any meetings here unless it's absolutely necessary. And I remembered when I worked in corporate roles and, you'd have a meeting at 4 o'clock. You're not listening. No one's listening at 4 o'clock. It's not happening, And I was project managing for a number of years in all different types of industries, and I just remember trying to hold meetings at 4 o'clock and no one's listening. No one's writing anything down. No one's on track with anything. So as a boss, as someone who's in, managing people, we want them to listen, and the best time to get them to listen is in the morning. Get them to do it then where they're fresh, their cortisol's nice and high, they're ready to go, they actually can be productive. But setting hard tasks in the afternoon for anybody is not realistic. So have a think about that one. Yeah. So if you can get home, why not get home at this time? Start earlier if you can. If your job permits you and you're able to get out of the office earlier, then absolutely get out around now and go for a walk. Get some of the sunlight. Be organized and set yourself up for tomorrow. Okay, because we don't want to be disorganized for our next day, because that makes us feel rushed. Okay, it prevents us from getting to our job in a nice, calm and mindful headset. Okay, so preparation is key. And if you're not an organized person, and let's face it, not everybody is, and that's okay, start doing something new. Start changing some of your habits. Just change some of the strategies so that you can prepare yourself for the next day and see how that makes you feel. Okay, so Between 5:30 and 6, there should be absolutely no work tasks here. Yeah, we're going to go home, do all your social media, use your phone, use your iPad, use your computer if you have to, right? Get all of that stuff out of the way and then switch it off. Yeah. All right, so you want to be settling into the evening. You want to be enjoying time with your family. So enjoying your dinner, dim your lights, avoid the bright lights if you can. Minimize your water intake. So we haven't spoken about water in depth in this because we're talking more circadian rhythm, but you want to be drinking plenty of nice, clean, filtered water throughout the day. Lots of it, 2 to 3 liters a day, right? But by the time you get to 5:30, 6 o'clock, we want to start slowing down on that so that we don't have to go to the toilet when we should be sleeping. All right. So if you're able to schedule in some self-care at this point as well, whether that's a nice bath or read a book or go for a walk or listen to this podcast and go for a walk, right? Meditate or just do nothing. Yeah. If you're able to find space here to do nothing, then please do it. So important. If you can see the sunset, great. Do that as well because that helps with your cortisol production, okay? It lowers the adrenal and the adrenal fatigue as well, okay? So it's important for humans to have time out, and this doesn't mean working on something around the house or doing a job or a task. This means doing something that revitalizes your energy levels. So you might get pleasure from doing nothing but sitting on a park bench and listening to the birds. Do that. Yeah, we live such busy lives because we are trying to distract ourselves from ourselves. That's the key to it, right? So we want to stop. So do nothing and find out what happens when you start doing nothing. It is an incredibly difficult challenge. And it's one of the very first challenges that I set for people who come and see me is the activity of doing nothing and starting off for 5 minutes of the day by doing nothing. And it's interesting because a lot of stuff comes up when we start having to just sit with ourselves. So if you have that opportunity and you're ready to make that change, then I so highly encourage that you look in that and start working through some of these things and leaning into who you are as a person and what that looks like and some of the things that need to be worked on. So doing nothing provides an opportunity for you to start doing that. All right, 6:30, 7 o'clock, dinner time. Yeah, what you're eating here, mindful portion control, quality over quantity. Yeah, again, minimize your water so that we don't need late night toilet runs. Yeah. It takes about an hour and a half actually for liquid to go from the mouth through to the bladder. So just bear that in mind. If you're actually looking to go to bed, at the right time, then you want to make sure that you're not drinking water too late. Sleep should be your number one priority. That is like the biggest thing that you should be concentrating on, especially if you're going through a lot in your life. It's making sure that you are being accountable for putting yourself to bed, okay? Because sleep is the basis of all good health routines. It might sound simple, but realistically, the majority of people aren't getting enough sleep, so you're not detoxing, you're not rebuilding, you're not storing memories, yeah? And it's so important to you, especially if you've got stuff going on in your life right now, to make sure that you try and get a good night's sleep. So be accountable for putting yourself to bed. Yeah. So 8 o'clock, put down your phone, put down your iPad, your computer, your devices. If you have to use them, then invest in some amber glasses that stop the blue light from coming through. And you can buy these online for about $30. So check that out. Okay, because blue light keeps you awake. It inhibits the release of melatonin, and it's known to take the brain at least an hour after device use before it starts releasing the melatonin. So if you're on your phone until bedtime and you can't get to sleep straight away, that's why. Because if you're sitting there and you're in bed, or you're on your computer and you're working and you've got your computer on your lap and you're in bed and you cannot get to sleep, or you're staying up so late that your eyeballs can't stay awake anymore, why are you doing that to yourself? Stop doing that to yourself. Go to sleep an hour and a half before you get to that point, because your body desperately wants to go to bed. It's begging you. So make sure that you're tapping in and you're listening to that, yeah? Disturbing the process, and keeping the brain alert and not having this melatonin release is going to lead to not only just poor sleep, but also anxiety, to stress, to anger and frustration. Okay. So don't do it to yourself. Try not to snack, especially if you're craving sweets as well. Opt for protein instead of sugary foods, so that your body feels a bit full if you're actually hungry, because sometimes it's habitual. Majority of the time, actually, it's habitual, right? We just go to the pantry because we're bored, because we just want to avoid tapping into ourselves, so we go and eat, and we don't actually need to eat, okay? So what's going on there? Let's get in there. Let's dig a little deeper and see what's going on. Now, 9:30 is the optimal time for you to go to bed, okay? Melatonin should have been released. You should be feeling sleepy. If you're struggling to get to sleep, read a book. Listen to a mindfulness meditation. If you've got things on your mind, keep a piece of paper and a pen or a journal beside you and start writing some of these things now down. Because the thing is that you can't change anything at that time of night. You can't call people and resolve things and sort stuff out. It's not a good time of the day to actually be doing those things. But you want to get out of your head. So write stuff down, get it out of your body and onto paper, and promise yourself that when you wake up, you'll come back to that. But at this point in time right now, this is your time and this is when you're going to go to sleep, and make sure you do that. All right, you want to sleep in a dark, cool room. So 19 degrees is the optimal temperature for humans. Okay, and if you're waking up during the night, make sure you have like a mindfulness meditation and just breathe. Just breathe, because I know it can be frustrating if you wake up in the night and you're worried and you're sitting there getting yourself all flustered. So give yourself permission to just lean into that and go, yes, this is not ideal, but there's nothing I can do about this right now. There's nothing I can change about this situation right now. And what is important for me in order to tackle that situation is to get a good night's sleep. So do what you need to do to get yourself there. Try not to panic, because when we go into a panic, we're setting our body back into that adrenal cortisol flight or fight response again. All right. And write down your worries. Like I said before, if you've got stuff going on, write them down, let them go, validate yourself and tell yourself you'll deal with them in the morning. You don't need to worry about this stuff right now. Okay. So 7 to 9 hours of good quality sleep is highly recommended. And, people say, should I take a melatonin supplement or should I not? And there's always pros and cons to this. So I have to say the little clause of make sure you contact your healthcare provider or speak to your GP or speak to a professional. But microdosing of melatonin is not necessarily a bad thing if you're not doing it every night, but you're doing it during those times of high anxiety, and especially for women in cycles. Days 21 to 24 is when we naturally suffer a bit of insomnia, and it's difficult for us to get to sleep. And that's because estrogen's dropping, progesterone's going up. We've got some stuff going on. And so even though progesterone is our calming hormone and we should be going to sleep, it's causing some anxiety and some frustrations. And that's when emotions start to arise and women start to have trouble getting to sleep. So having a small microdose of melatonin is not necessarily a bad thing. But again, speak with your healthcare provider, speak to the pharmacist, speak to your GP and find out what's going to work best for you. You don't need to go to a GP and get a prescription of melatonin. You can buy it from a health food shop. You can buy it online. Okay, so just be aware of that. You don't have to go and get a prescription one. It's a natural product. Okay, you release it from your brain every single night. All right, I think that's it. Circadian Biology 101, done and dusted. So if you have any questions about that, don't forget to send them through. I've touched on some of the things that you can do, and I've stepped you through like the hourly process throughout the course of the day of how you can actually optimize things. So hopefully you've taken away some tips and tools that you can use there, some things that maybe you aren't doing, and you can actually improve the way that you work with your circadian rhythm. So if you have any questions though, send them through to me. Don't forget to share it with your family and friends, because this is how we get the word out there. And if you've got someone who's really struggling with their sleep-wake cycles at the moment, then send this to them because maybe it's going to help them. It's a free chat, okay? It's a free episode. It doesn't cost anything. It's just free information. So make sure that you send this on to them. And if you're loving it, please leave a 5-star review. Oh my gosh, that would be amazing. We're into season 3 now. It's so exciting. And there's thousands of you from all over the world. And I really appreciate each and every one of you for jumping on and listening and sharing with your family and friends, because this is how we get the information out there. It's free. And I want to keep it free for as long as possible. So make sure you're sharing it. Make sure you're keeping giving me a 5-star review. And we've got workshops and stuff coming out soon as well. So there are circles, monthly circles. Tickets are on Humanitix, so check those out. Workshops start up again soon. we've got Women of Wisdom books coming out soon with the beautiful Beck Bucci. There's so many things happening this year, which is so exciting, and we get to share it with all of you. And so if you want any information on that, just check it out on my Insta page at Perth Wellness Coach, or the _Mind Body Studio podcast as well. All right, everybody. Until next time, stay safe, look after yourself, and I'll catch you later. Bye.
The information, views and opinions expressed on this podcast should not be used or treated as a substitute for nutritional, medical, psychological or other advice by a qualified medical health professional. Hosts and guests on the podcast express their own opinions, experiences and conclusions. And nothing on the podcast should be used to diagnose, treat, cure or prevent any medical conditions. The podcast is not intended to replace any medical or mental health treatment. All information and advice provided is for general well-being and does not take individual cases into consideration. Neither Tracey Soltis, guests on the podcast, or any sponsors endorse the opinions, views or conclusions expressed or shared on the podcast. Tracey Soltis takes no responsibility for any symptoms or consequences as a direct or indirect result of this podcast.